That one you play all of it. This Biden is
There in Africa,
no.
we're
You start
working
all
in
of it.
a public partnership
Start
as
back.
well to
All of it.
invest in the trans-African.
Start all of it. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
There in Africa, we're working in a private-public partnership as well to invest in the trans-African corridor. That includes a new partner, the European Union. President von der Leyen, thank you for making this very possible. Together, as part of this corridor, we're going to invest in a new rail line that will extend from the western port in Angola to the DRC, to Zambia, and ultimately the Indian Ocean. It's a project that's about far from just laying tracks. It's about creating jobs, increasing trade, strengthening supply chains, boosting connectivity, laying foundations that will strengthen commerce and food security for people across multiple countries. This is a game-changing regional investment, and both of these are huge, huge steps forward. But
Lobito corridor will extend across Africa from western Angola to the DRC to Zambia, boosting regional connectivity and strengthening commerce and security in Africa. Similarly, the groundbreaking effort we announced at the G20 to connect India to Europe through the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel. Spur opportunities and investment across two continents. This is part of our effort to build a more sustainable, integrated Middle East. It demonstrates how Israel's greater normalization and economic connection with its neighbors is delivering positive and practical impacts, even as we continue to work tirelessly to support a just and lasting peace between the Israelis and Palestinians, 2 states for 2 people. Now, let me be clear. None of these partnerships are about containing any country. They're about a positive vision for our shared future. When it comes to China, I want to be clear and consistent. We seek to responsibly manage the competition between our countries so it does not tip into conflict. I've said we are for de-risking, not decoupling with China.
In fact, this weekend, I'll be in Saudi Arabia for meetings with its leadership. And my UAE and Indian counterparts will come to Saudi Arabia as well for meetings so that we can discuss new areas of cooperation between New Delhi and the Gulf, as well as the United States and the rest of the region, fueled in part by the comprehensive economic partnership signed last year between India and the UAE. And this can help us carry forward some very tangible initiatives that we think will be unlike anything that we have seen in the region in recent years. Similarly, last June, President Biden and other G7 leaders launched the Partnership for Global Infrastructure Investment, PGII, another maybe not so great acronym, to address enormous infrastructure needs in low and middle income countries and to meet the challenge of securing and diversifying global supply chains. Many of our Middle East partners, particularly in the Gulf, have now pledged multi-billion-dollar projects to PGII, aimed to advance strategic projects, from ports to rail to electricity lines to essential minerals, from Africa to Asia to the Middle East region. So when you look at things like I2U2 and PGII and a lot of the practical challenges I've discussed, I've reached a point in this speech where the emphasis on these kinds of elements from a national security advisor is a different kind of take on the role of the region in the world, the role of the region in advancing US interests, and the role of the United States in working with partners in this region on these challenges. But in the world I described at the outset of my speech, in a world of great power competition, in a world of accelerating transnational challenges, we have to increasingly look to the region as a source of the kinds of partnerships that will help us solve the significant problems of the period that lies ahead. Countries that can help us with diversified and resilient supply chains so that we're not dependent on any other country. Countries that can help us make the clean energy transition successful, both in terms of the stable supply of current energy and in terms of the rapid and expansive deployment of new clean energy. Solutions on everything from food security to water security that become so central, not just to problem solving around the world, but to the demand signal from countries that are getting in treaties from some of our great power competitors. So this partnerships piece of the strategy in the Middle East, from my perspective, is part of the answer to the question of why the Middle East still really matters. It doesn't
Yeah, so hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Connect Africa. It has been a while. We are very happy to be back, and I am sure same for you as well. Yeah, so as we have started by showing those videos, now you know on what topic tonight we are going to have a discussion when we say on the sidelines of the G20 meeting in New Delhi in India that happened in the last month that was just ended a few days ago. So yeah, for that we have Kwame. The topic will be, of course, it's something that impacts Africa, what happened on the sideline when the G20 meeting happened in India. We have analyzed it here, from the perspective of the African Union being a permanent, the African Union being a member of the G20 to make it G21, Africa as a whole. What was the contribution of India? What does it mean for Africa to be a member of G20? All this, we have analyzed it when it happened. So now we are here, a topic that we have been putting aside and postponing, but today is the day we are going to spill what happened on the sideline of that G20 meeting, particularly on the project that the United States and Europe have introduced, a railway project that includes from Angola to DRCs and to Zambia. What is this railway project? So we have Kwame. Welcome, Kwame. And we're going to proceed. We are happy to have you back, Kwame. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mahlet, and thank you for the programs you've been doing and updating our people, of course, on the news that is going on across the continent, everything that has been happening, majority of the things that have been happening across the continent coming in, now and then to update our people on what is happening on the continent. I think that is very important, especially for the African diaspora. And of course, even those who are on the continent, many of the people, they don't know what is going on in other parts of the continent. So I think that you are doing a very good job. Greetings to everyone, of course, and the new subscribers to the channel. We want to thank you very much for choosing Connect Africa. And of course, we want to ask you to invite other people to be part of the channel as we grow. You know, we want to recognize you as one of our first people when the channel was growing to a certain, extent. So that appreciation, I think, goes out to you. As Mahlet has mentioned, we are trying to look at on the sidelines of the G20, what happened there. There is a very important event that happened at the, on the sidelines of the G20. And I call it important because it affects Africa in a major way. And that event was the signing of two projects that happened at the G20 summit in India, in New Delhi. And that includes, of course, United States signed with India and Arab states and Europe together. We saw Mohammed bin Salman, we saw the Prime Minister Modi, Narendra Modi, we saw Biden, we saw the President of the European Union Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. So the four of them signed for a project of railway and ports that are going to go from India all the way through the Middle East, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and all the way to Europe. So these projects, they are looking at the United States to lead the process of putting them together in what they called, of course, the PGII, the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. Now, the other projects that happened on the sidelines was the Lobito corridor. They talked about the Lobito corridor. And this is a railway project that is going to run from the Atlantic Ocean, from the port of Lobito in Angola, all the way to the Democratic Republic of Congo to enter into the Democratic Republic of Congo. And then it will go all the way to Zambia, where they want to develop more infrastructure. Now, this is the project that is very important for Africa that specifically we want to focus on, even though we are going to talk about the other project of India and Saudi Arabia and Europe all together, put together. They are developing a project there. Of course, we mentioned it, but our focus majorly, because we are an African channel and we are more interested in things African and how Africa is interacting with the global partners, so-called partners, or the imperialists and all those ones who are on the global stage. This is what we are interested in and how Africa benefits. Now, we want to scrutinize this particular project and see, is it going to benefit Africa, or it is another project in the exploitation of Africa's resources? And that is why we started with those particular videos when Biden was making his statements, launching it in India. And we saw him repeat this at the United Nations. And of course, we saw even, we gave you a little bit of history to look at the strategy of the Biden administration from Jake Sullivan, who is his national security advisor, but at the same time, he's is one of the people who are crafting Biden's policy, industrial policy in the United States. Now, this is what we are going to examine and look at, in detail. So if you are out there, try and invite other people so that they can be part of this, so that we can all learn, because the continent belongs to us. If we continue to let it be exploited without us being vigilant and paying attention, then we are going to leave a worse continent for our children who are coming and the next generations. So I think the time starts now by us paying attention and talking about these issues, and this will give us an impetus for action, towards liberating the whole African continent. Thank you very much, Mahlet. I hope I've not spoken too much.
Yeah, you probably pointed out, what are the questions going to be discussed tonight. So the railway project that includes these three countries from Angola to DRC. It's this Lobito corridor. It exists before. Now it's going to extend to Zambia. But the question is it just, another project to ship the African natural resource outside of the continent to the US and Europe, or is the US really changing its foreign policy in Africa? So yeah, let's start with that. You are muted.
Yeah, thank you, Mahlet. To understand very well what this project is about, I think it is important to look at the global events, what is going on across the world. That is number one. Number two, it is important to look at the Biden's strategy and those people around him, what they are advising him. Of course, the Democrats in the United States, the Democratic Party in the United States. It is important to look at what their strategy is compared to what Trump was advocating for, or his policy towards Africa. And the policy of the Democratic Party in the United States has majorly been to claim that they are re-engaging, where Trump had withdrawn. And of course, you have seen things like the Paris Climate Agreement, where Trump had withdrawn. They went back in. The Iran, nuclear agreement, they went back in. And so this is also, this project in Africa, the Lobito, railway project, is part of that strategy of re-engaging with Africa. You remember that Trump, of course, had called Africa a shithole. They are shithole countries. And of course, this is the policy of the United States. It's just that the difference between Trump and Biden is that Trump says it as it is, just, how they are saying it internally. And Biden, on the other hand, pretends that he's not saying that they are shithole countries, but the actions show that they look at Africa as a shithole place and they are shithole countries. And of course, we will talk about that when we look at also the memorandum of understanding, the MOU that was signed between the United States, Zambia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And in this MOU, what they speak about, of course, this is where it all started, this project, as part of that integral part of the United States strategy around the globe. At the United States Africa Summit, which happened in December last year, 2022, they signed a memo of understanding, which was, quote unquote, in support, memorandum for the support of, for the support for the development of a value chain in the electric vehicle battery sector. It is for the support of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia and the Republic of Zambia by the United States. So that was the memo which was signed between the United States and Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia. Now, that is where it started, at the US Africa Summit, like I said. Now, this means that the Africans were pushing on one side for certain interests, and the United States recognized those interests, and it wanted to show some level of commitment towards those commitments by, those interests by the Africans, of course, in developing industries which are dedicated towards the development of electric batteries on the continent, instead of shipping out materials like lithium, cobalt, which, of course, cobalt, the Democratic Republic of Congo has around 70% of the global cobalt, which is needed in the electric car batteries. And so the United States wanted to show that it has that level of commitment to these countries and to Africa and the African interests. And it wanted to demonstrate that at the US Africa Summit. Now, this falls into that point which I first made of the changing global order and economy, which has to do with the development of electric cars across the world, because these are the new vehicles. And now lithium and copper and cobalt, they are the new form of energy, just like how you have been seeing in the Middle East oil. Oil has been leading the United States even to attack countries and destroy them because of this energy resource. Now, the new energy resource is lithium, which is going to store the electricity that is going to run the vehicles. Because remember, the vehicles have been running on petrol and diesel. And the United States has been fighting to have these resources in the Middle East and dominate the Middle East. Now, those resources now are in Africa. So this is what we are seeing. And of course, it also explains the United States presence in Zambia, whereby it established AFRICOM, the Africa Command, which they say is situated in Germany, Stuttgart. It's supposed to be there. Now, they moved it closer. They moved it closer to where the resources are. Now, this is the copper belt. This region is known as the copper belt between Angola, Zambia, and Democratic Republic of Congo. So the purpose of developing this more than 1,400 kilometer rail network is for them to gobble up, these resources, the lithium, the cobalt, and copper, which is coming from Zambia, and take it to build the motors. We've been speaking about this repeatedly, of course. Build the motors, build electric motors, build batteries for their factories, for their vehicles. In the United States, we know that Tesla built a giga factory in Nevada, which is about $3.6 billion, which is supposed to produce batteries. And so they are trying to secure these battery materials so that they can be able to create jobs in their country. And so that is why we see that there is this commitment to this project. The project is not because they want to have development in Africa, they want to help develop Africa, but it's because of the interest of these materials which are necessary into the next industrial revolution. They are necessary, for pushing them or pushing everyone else into the next industrial revolution. And I remember we spoke about here the third and fourth industrial revolution. Those people who have not watched that video, to understand what we are talking about, about the third industrial revolution or fourth industrial revolution, go and watch that video, which we have done on Connect Africa. Now, these materials are necessary in that. So it is necessary for them to paint it as a project which is going to help Africa and is going to help agriculture, is going to help supply chains. There's a word which is now being used majorly and has been emanating from the West. The word is called the supply chains, diversifying supply chains. And many African intellectuals have jumped on this word. Oh, diversifying supply chains, diversifying supply chains. But they don't know what these people means. These people, what they mean is that they are trying to secure our resources, because Biden said that they are trying to, to integrate supply chains, battery supply chains, and they will be mentioning a lot of big words: sustainability, improving people's lives, development of the people. But the purpose, of course, is for the extraction of these material resources. And this definitely takes us back to what Nkrumah mentioned in his book, Africa Must Unite, that Africa has always been looked at, as a source of raw materials for Western industrialization. And the only way to remedy and to stop this trend of affairs is not merely for us to mention that we have an intention of establishing a battery, a supply chain, a full supply chain or battery chain, an integrated supply chain in Africa of batteries to manufacture lithium batteries, but to unify Africa. Because when you unify Africa and you are working together, you don't need to go to anyone to beg for capital, because capital has majorly been the problem. But a unified Africa has enough capital. because you have $3.5 trillion of economy of Africa. Now, if you establish a central bank, you are able to print money in your own debt as Africa and finance your own project. And this debt, because you have the resources, then you have the ability of attracting investors in your debt, like China. You can print like $500 billion, you can print them out. Look at the United States, for example. It printed between 2020 and 2022, it printed $7 trillion. $7 trillion. Now, for us to be able to manufacture this lithium by ourselves and build our own factories, we need a unified Africa. We need a central bank of Africa, or People's Central Bank of Africa, to be able to take care of the issue of finance, because we already have a strong, economy, which is just around, below 55%. I think it's below 54%. Our debt is below 54% debt to GDP of the African economy, compared to the United States, for example. Its debt to GDP is around 130%. Ours is just around below 24%. So this makes it possible for you to be able to have access to finances, for you to finance your project, for you to be able to fund your project. So they are building this, which is started, of course, like I mentioned, from the US-Africa Summit, to ship out Africa's material resources. But they are painting it as if they are helping Africa to build its infrastructure. They are painting it as if it is going to help Africans. And of course, I'm not saying Africans will completely not benefit anything. Now, we will benefit, but we understand that even just like at the IMF and World Bank, we are always left with the crumbs. Now, the major benefit will be shipped out, which is our material resources. Because regardless of whether the United States committed itself, which it did not during the MOU signing between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia, they did not commit themselves to this, outlook that we are going to build factories. Even when you look at the MOU, the last part, the fourth part of the MOU, section 3, they said that section 3, part 4 in the MOU, they said that the memorandum of understanding is not intended to be legally binding and is not an obligation of funds. You see, all activities pursued under this memorandum of understanding are subject to the availability of funds. So what they are trying to say, what the United States is trying to say, is that this memo which we signed, even though we showed that we support Congo and Zambia in establishing a supply chain or establishing factories for manufacturing lithium batteries, this memorandum of understanding is not binding. They pointed it out. Is not binding and is not a guarantee for funds. We are not going to fund until we get it, until we get the funds. You see? Now, when this project comes in, of course, Zambia, they themselves, Zambia came in and also signed on to the development of this railway project. Now, what is in the back of their minds in Zambia and Democratic Republic of Congo? They are thinking that what they signed at the US-Africa Summit is the continuation of this process. And therefore, battery factories are going to be built in Congo and Zambia. And this is unlikely to happen. I will not say it is not going to happen, but it is unlikely to happen. And the memo, because they may forget very quickly, and some of them, they don't read these agreements which they sign, this memorandum of understanding, some of them, they don't read them. You will find that they don't know what these memos are saying. That the memo is saying that it is not, the memorandum of understanding is not intended to be legally binding. The memorandum of understanding is not intended to be legally binding and is not an obligation of funds. All activities pursued under this memorandum of understanding are subject to the availability of funds. So this is what it is, it is saying. So what they said also in section 4, point 4, in section 4, they say that this memorandum of understanding becomes operative upon the signature of the participants. But also what we noted is that in section 4, point number 2, they say that the participants may discontinue its participation. A participant may discontinue its participation in this memorandum of understanding at any time. At any time. That is section 4, point number 2. This is what the memo said. This is the US Africa Summit. Remember, this is where the United States made a lot of noise and said that they are committing $55 billion to Africa for investment in Africa and so-called the private sector. And they will mention a lot of things about private sector. But again, they are telling you that this memo which we signed together, we can discontinue it at any time without telling you. And we have seen, of course, the United States walk away from memos, understanding our agreements. We saw the Paris Climate Agreement. They walked away. Trump came out and threw it away. He came and threw away the Iran agreement, the Iran nuclear agreement. The United States is not a reliable partner. And so with this agreement, such an agreement, which is clear, is very clear like this, like this, what the United States is trying to do. Now, the railway project, as intended, is going to transport Africa's material resources, just like in the colonial times, to Europe and the United States. And actually, the financials of this project, let me show you something here. The financials of this project are from Portugal, Singapore, and of course the United States. How much money was committed to the project is that the United States, of course, committed $250 million, and we saw Mota Engil of Portugal committing together with another company from Singapore, I think it's called the Trafigura. They committed themselves to around $550 million. So altogether, it is a project of around 700, $800 million. Okay, so that is the amount that was committed. But to re-emphasize the issue, to re-emphasize the point I'm making, is that the United States, what it is trying to do for itself is to continue to extract Africa's resources, and of course with its European allies, because this project has been advanced by both the United States and Europe. And we know that Europe also, it has its companies, Volkswagen and all these who are manufacturing the electric cars, and they want to compete against China. You saw that Biden at the UN speech, in his UN speech, he spoke about China and the competition with China, how they want to de-risk and all this, because China has the control over the supply chain of batteries. And it is right now the one who's leading in these batteries, in these electric, car batteries. So the United States feels that it is so dependent on China when it comes to electric car batteries. You can see countries like Tesla, companies like Tesla are depending on a company called Kato from China to buy a lot of its batteries, which are going into its vehicles. And of course, majority of the other European, vehicle companies. So this is what they are calling de-risking, by coming up with new projects which are not aimed at making their relationship between Africa, their relationship with Africa better, but to continue the process of exploitation. And so, Mahlet, let me show this this line where it is passing. Let me show this line where it is passing. Mahlet, let me share this so that we can see. Yeah, so you can see that what we have is the railway line that is going from the so is going from Angola, the Lobito corridor. You can see it over here, and then is going to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and then of course you can see that it is going to Zambia. So they're going to extend. What they want is to extend this all the way to Zambia. So there's extension to Zambia there, as we are seeing. And like I mentioned, this is of course the copper belt, the famous copper belt, because there's a lot of copper. It is called the copper belt because there's a lot of copper here. And the other thing which I see that I did not mention is that they have an interest. The presence of AFRICOM, of course, is also because they have an interest in Zimbabwe, that they have wanted to take Zimbabwe's lithium, because Zimbabwe has a lot of lithium. And so this is what explains also the presence of AFRICOM, Africa Command in this region, that they brought it to Zambia so that they can be able to pull all these resources and take them to the United States and take them to Europe and be able to enrich themselves. So it is a very difficult situation, and it requires us as Africans to pay close attention to what is happening and be vigilant in all aspects. Thank you very much, Mahlet. Back to you, please.
Thank you, Kwame, for that indeed. Now, another project that we have heard on the sideline event is that the railway and maritime corridor, or the railway, the port and railway project. Now, is this something that they want to counter? Is it because they want to counter the Road and Belt initiative of China? And is this also different from the above of the railway projects as they're talking about, between the three countries? So yeah, is it different or is it the same?
Yeah. So the China actually the project which they are trying to do between India and the Middle East, and India, the Middle East, and all the way to Europe, because it is going to include Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. That project is, from my outlook, it is a project that is aimed at countering, of course, is aimed at countering China's Belt and Road Initiative. We remember that the United States has been pressuring Italy, and Italy pulled out of the Belt and Road Initiative because the Road and Belt was a set of infrastructure projects that are supposed to go around, the world, to which the countries of the world were supposed to subscribe and work with China in building those infrastructure projects, and they were supposed to enhance the trade of the world. Now, what we are seeing, that it is this project which they are trying to construct is moving closely, to where the Belt and Road Initiative, is trying to pass. And therefore, in simple terms, it is a project for the countering It is a project for the countering of China's project, and the United States is trying to rely on to its so-called the private sector, the private individuals, to raise this money, generally as part of the program for global infrastructure and investment, which they committed themselves. At first, they said it is around $650 billion. And later they said it is $600 billion. So it has gone on shifting. But so far, ever since it was launched, I think it has been up to 3 years. We have not seen any single project that has been developed. And of course, it is a project that is being pushed by his national security advisor, who's Jake Sullivan. And we saw, of course, the Biden saying that when he was in Vietnam, he said that he's just given orders, and so it is what is being pushed by the elite, the democratic elite in the United States currently. As we saw that Biden is saying they give them orders, they give him orders, and he just follows orders. When he was in Vietnam, I just follow orders which I'm given. So he didn't sort of know where he was when he was in Vietnam, and he's having problems with his aging because he's advanced in age. So I think this is one of the problems that he's having. But Jake Sullivan is the one who gave a speech. He gave even a very powerful speech about 4 months ago, in which he laid out the strategic, position of the United States and what he thought that the United States, should be implementing under the Biden administration to regain its position as an economic leader. And to regain that position of economic dominance on the global stage. And of course, that included the things like CHIPS Act, which was for the investment in chips as a technology, as a form of technology. And we saw that they are competing, tightly with China on this. And therefore, such projects as these, which are under the program for global infrastructure and investment, which they mentioned, they are also aimed at countering China, where China has been working, and so they should come. But it also shows that they are trailing behind. They are also trailing behind China in many aspects, because they are just reacting. You can call them that they are reactionary projects, because when you look at the Belt and Road Initiative, which President Xi Jinping brought, they reacted to it. The project, Xi Jinping's project, I think it was announced, is around a $1 trillion project. And so far, I think they have spent close to more than $10 billion. I think the Chinese have spent more than $10 billion. I don't know exactly how much has been spent yet, but that is how much has been spent. And Biden and his group, they have not really spent money yet when it comes to their projects, because actually they don't have the money. The United States doesn't have the money. And this is this is another problem, that even though they committed themselves, they really don't have the money to finance these projects to be able to compete with China. And so what we see is continued reverting to the same mode of exploitation, to the same colonial system, whereby you build railway networks in the continent, just like how Britain did, to extract out Africa's resources and take them, but not build the infrastructure, not build the industries, because they know that if they build the industries in Africa, their people will lose their jobs. They will not have jobs in the United States. This is one of the issues that they have. And then, of course, the other thing is that Africa will start using the same resources to modernize itself. Because what Congo and Zambia have indicated is that they want to develop their own industries and use it at home, use these batteries at home, maybe for solar, for renewable energy. And the United States is not interested in that kind of approach. So even though in these projects, Jake Sullivan is enthusiastic, coming out and then bringing India on board, bringing the Middle East, bringing Europe on board, but the issue of financing is still a problem, that they are saying they are looking to the private sector to finance these projects. And even when you listen to Jake Sullivan in his speech, which we played, he said that the project that they are going to, actually he gave the speech about 4 months ago, before Biden went to India at the G20 to sign this project. He gave his speech about 4 months ago. And that is when that speech, which Jack Sullivan, gave, happened. He said that they are working with their partners in the Middle East to finance these projects. And also, when it comes to the project in Africa, it shows you that the United States doesn't have money. How much did it commit itself? It committed $250 million. This is just chicken change when you are talking about $250 million. It's just chicken change. So it also, it again shows you how unserious the United States is about its relationship with Africa. Very unserious. There's a huge unseriousness. It is very unserious as a country when it comes to the relationship with Africa, and is more interested in continuing that process of exploitation of the African continent and taking resources and giving nothing back. So the project with India, the Middle East, and Europe, I doubt it will materialize. I doubt. I'm not saying it is impossible, but I doubt that project will really materialize to anything. It may be just a gimmick to show that they have the ability of countering China in the region and how China is spending and spending on projects. Just it may be a gimmick or a strategy just to derail China's project and defeat it, so that at the end of the day, they themselves will not build anything when China has not built anything. And of course, we have seen that they have been demonizing China's projects as debt traps. Even in Indonesia recently launched a high-speed train, which was built by China. And they said, which was financed by China, I think it is around 7 billion. And that project is part of the Belt and Road Initiative. And the project is around $7 billion. They built it with around $7 billion. And the United States immediately jumped on board to criticize the project as a debt trap. So if it is built by China, then the United States sees it as a debt trap and parrots it as a debt trap. If it is built by the United States and its European, so-called institutions and partners, then it is a project, it's a big project that should be praised. But when we look at the project itself that is being built in Africa, which is the focus for us today, you see that they formed a consortium. They formed a consortium in which the countries, the companies which are going to operate this rail is the one from Singapore and the one from Portugal, Trafigura, and then Mota NGO. They are the ones who are going to operate this for 30 years, to operate the project for 30 years. And each of those, they own around 49.4, and another one owns, I think, 49.5% of the consortium that was formed. Now, this is the project which Zambia, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Angola have signed on. And what makes it more ridiculous, it is very similar to the other contracts that our, the forefathers, you can call them forefathers, who have been selling Africa's resources for cheap. This contract is similar to what, they have signed. So it gives out what belongs to Africa. And then how will we wait? How long are we going to wait? How are we going to wait for more than 30 years before the rail, the rail system will come back to Africans and become Africa's? That is when they have finished shipping out all the resources that belongs to Africa. They will have established their industry, their electric car industry in the United States and Europe, and they would have shipped out all the material resources, all the cobalt, all the lithium, all, the copper. They will have finished it to establish themselves, in the United States, because you are talking about 30 years when we are not benefiting anything. They control everything, because like I mentioned, each of the owners of the consortium who are in Europe and Singapore, they own 49.5 and 49.4% of this particular project that is going on. Now, Africa doesn't own anything. Congo, Zambia does not own anything in this project. And this is the project they are parading as is going to help Africa. It's going to help to improve the people's lives in the region, improve agriculture. But all these are just crumbs that if anyone is going to use this rail, it's just a few people, a few farmers who will be jumping on top to go with it, and they will count this as benefits, economic benefits, for the African people. So all the projects, they are a reaction, whether it is that in India, Europe, and the Middle East, is a reaction to China's Belt and Road Initiative. They are just reactionary projects. They are not really strategic projects that you can talk of, that they are for enhancing the relationship, maybe between India and the Middle East and Europe, or enhancing the relationship and having a respectable relationship between the United States and Africa, or the United States and Zambia and Democratic Republic of Congo and Angola. So this is what we see in these particular projects.
Thank you, Kwame. That's pretty much what is planned for today. So basically, it's just another project to extract the natural resources of Africa to them, because this is now, as Kwame said last time, he has explained what the fourth industrialization is. And they want all those resources, cobalt, lithium, for their electric car. Somebody asked here the same question, but I think Osie, first of all, welcome. You have to listen from the start, then that question is answered. He says, Connect Africa is a new railway line only to be used for the export of raw materials, or can Africa utilize the infrastructure to boost trade within Africa? Exactly. What about those three countries? Remember, this project is introduced by the US and France. So there must be something also Europe or France is getting out of it. There is another one also that includes the Middle East, Europe, and Africa, the railway and maritime project. So I don't know if you have addressed, I don't think you did, the one, so if these two projects are the same. If not, then we see a name difference. If not, then what makes them different, really? It's all about connecting those three countries where these natural resources to Europe. One says through Middle East. But so is there any difference between the two projects?
Yeah, so there is some, before I come back to the question, I don't know whether it was asked by C&S. The difference now between the two projects is that the project in Africa is purposely for the exploitation of Africa's resources, just like colonial times. And that is what is happening. And the project between India, the Middle East, and Europe, that one is just for countering the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, for the United States to show off, or even to try to kill the Belt and Road Initiative. And at the end of the day, not construct anything which they promised themselves. And everyone knows that the United States is not a reliable partner. It's not. They come out of contracts anytime they want. And that is why you saw the memos, the MOUs, which they sign, some of them, they don't commit to them, fully, that they don't commit to anything specific. Even when you look at the MOU that was signed, between them and Zambia and Democratic Republic of Congo. So they can jump out of any project. And say we did not commit ourselves completely. So that is after they have achieved, when they have achieved their objectives from that particular relationship, then the rest is up to you. Because even after that period, you, the president who signed it, you will have been removed from power. And another person will have come, and another person comes with their own ideas. So when they come with their own ideas, actually they find you embroiled in certain, they find the country embroiled in certain agreements which people did not agree to, and this becomes, of course, a problem. And of course, they will come to you and enforce those agreements, and they will tell you that it is your president who signed these contracts, and you can't come out. But themselves, they will not commit, to them. So I encourage people to go out and read that MOU. Maybe Mahlet, let me show the people here. Can you allow me to share a little bit, and we show them. Let me share this. Let me, okay. Yeah, I want to share. Yeah, Mahlet, can you hear me?
Yeah, but I don't see the document.
Okay.
So now I'll share it.
Okay, let me bring it back.
It's fine. So I'm gonna read comments perhaps. What we are waiting for is for Africa to build its own railway lines to connect cities.
So there it is.
Not yet. No.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, Osie, there is you have heard
Yeah,
that Cape to Cairo project, but there is definitely one coming. I don't know, maybe by 2024 if it is ready. That starts really from Egypt and realizing the Cape to Cairo highway project. It passes through 11 countries in Africa. That's exactly what we need. Egypt got a loan already, I don't know how, thousands of kilometers, of course. 10% of the miles, the distance happens within Egypt itself, but passes through 11 countries. I know that Ethiopia is also part of it, and then it reached to Cape in South Africa. That's exactly what we need. These are, something for their own interest to ship as fast as possible the resource. Kwame, you couldn't share it?
Yeah, so I was trying to figure it out so that guys can see it. Let me see again, once again. So can you see it?
See? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you can see that this is the memorandum of understanding with the United States and Congo and Zambia, of course. And when you look carefully, you can see section 3, which I was mentioning, point 4, the memorandum. They say that the memorandum is not binding. I think you can see it, Mahlet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they say that the memorandum of understanding is not binding. So he's saying that the United States confirms its interest in supporting the development of industrialized economic growth, such as through the construction of electric vehicle precursor plants in DRC and Zambia, and to provide the technical assistance. But then they say that this is not binding. So at the end here in section 4, they said that they can discontinue this agreement anytime. It's not intended, is not intended to affect the implementation. So the participant, this is section 2. So at 2 here, this is where it is very important when these MOUs are being signed, and of course contracts. Many of the African heads of state will just sign these and they don't know what they are signing onto and what they are putting our people, the problems they are putting our people into. So the participant may discontinue its participation anytime they want. And of course, we mentioned the track record of the United States when it comes to these contracts, and how its record is when it comes to honoring contracts. Even the United Nations Charter itself, you see that it is a problem for the United States to honor the United Nations Charter. It violates every day. It violates the United Nations, human rights charter, going to Iraq and kill people and stuff like that. So that is when it comes to this MOU that was signed between Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia, and then the United States, when it comes to the supporting for the development of value chain in the electric vehicle battery sector. They did not commit themselves to anything specific for this project, that they are going to put a factory or $500 million factory, nothing like that we saw. And yet we see that Tesla is building in Nevada, a gigafactory of $3.6 billion. $3.6 billion for batteries, to manufacture batteries. So it shows you that they are trying to source materials for Elon Musk, for him to carry out his extractive activities within the African continent. So that is what we are seeing. Now, to answer the question that I think it was C&S, Mahlet, was it C&S who asked the question?
It was Ekwa.
Was it her? Was it him or her who asked?
Him. It's a he.
Okay. Yeah. So what he asked is when it comes whether it will benefit whether the project will benefit the African countries. I think that depends on whether the project is going to facilitate any trade, any trade between the African countries, between Congo.
I think that's a connection problem. I'm sure Kwame will come back. But until then, let me engage myself with the comments here. Here Kwame is. Welcome back.
Sorry, with the network was disturbing me. So whether that project is going to help to facilitate any trade between the Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia, and Angola, is, you ask that what are they trading? What goods are currently present in Democratic Republic of Congo that are not present in Zambia? Or what goods are present in Democratic Republic of Congo that are not present in Angola and are going to be transported between there? In reality, if you examine, there's really not much that is in Zambia that is not Democratic Republic of Congo that the people need there. Unless we build industries and start manufacturing certain things in Zambia that will be needed in Democratic Republic of Congo. But for now, you're talking about only agricultural goods. And the project itself was not built to interconnect Africa. just like what just like the project which we are proposing, because we are proposing from our side. Mahlet, if you give me the screen once again a little bit, the project which we are proposing, the project which we are proposing is different. A project like this one, which is the Africa Railway, Triangle Network Master Plan, is dedicated towards, unifying the African continent, trade, and of course to try to start moving goods, and of course you can talk of things like the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. This is the purpose of such a project. But for the project by the United States and Europe, is not connecting in Africa in a major way to advance or to move certain goods which are being targeted. What they are targeting is for themselves, and that is to move Africa's goods to the coast, to the Atlantic. That is why you see that I pointed out for you that it is moving. It will move. Their project will move goods from Zambia, to Democratic Republic of Congo, and take them to Angola. To Angola, and then to the port where the ships, American ships and European ships, will pick them up and send them to Europe. So that is the problem that we have. And yet for us, our project which we designed, which is the Africa Railway Triangle Network Master Plan, is for interconnecting the continent, not specifically transporting goods for anyone and removing them from the continent and sending them anywhere. So that is the difference between these two projects, and that is just specifically to answer the question which the person was asking.
Thank you, Kwame, for addressing that. I don't see any other question, but if I may, let me add a question to you. There is a Road and Belt project or initiative by China, and China itself is also it has agreements to export, or to, I don't know if it is processing or exporting the raw material, the copper or the lithium in one of those countries, Zambia and or DRC. So if what I'm saying is first of all right, if not, you can correct me, but I know the presence of China there. What makes it different now with the US one, so we can understand?
Mahlet, can you come again?
I said China also has an agreement with, I don't know, I think Zambia or DRC in processing or probably exporting the raw material of lithium and copper. Now, if I am, if it's a mistake, you can correct me. But I know there is China there in Zambia and DRC as well. So what makes it different from what the US and Europe are going to do now or planning to do?
Yeah, so I will take you back to there's a former Greece finance minister. He's called Yanis Varoufakis. He said that Greece, under the supervision of the IMF, sold a port to Chinese businessmen. And when he came to power, he saw that the deal which was signed by the previous government and the Chinese investors in Greece to take the port and control it, he said that the deal was not good for Greece. So he reached out to the Chinese investors and asked them to renegotiate and gave his own terms. And the Chinese investors, they agreed.
Mm-hmm.
So they agreed. So they agreed to the terms which he gave them under the new government. Now, what he mentioned later at the end of answering this particular question is that the Chinese, if you push them, they are able to adjust, to make adjustments. But the Europeans and the Americans, they will reject the making adjustments, or they will finance a coup in your country and overthrow you if you are president. They will remove you from power if you are trying to make adjustments and renegotiate contracts. Now, this is what makes it different, is that if you go to the Chinese and you know what you want and you insist, then you will make positive progress. And as we have seen, China's contracts with Africa or deals with Africa, they are not the best in Africa's shoes when you come from Africa's position, but they are far better. They are 1,000 times better than the West. Africa's, the best deals that Africa should be making, it should be making them when it is unified, with a unified policy and with itself. By unifying all its resources, these are the best deals. This is the best way we can push anyone across the globe to make deals which are fair, very fair to Africa, or the best deals for Africa. But what we can get from China is just better than the West. Or if I may say, in the words of Yanis Varoufakis from Greece, the former minister of Greece, he said that China's relationship with Africa is 1,000 times better. This is not an African who said, this is a Greece minister who said that China's relationship with Africa is 1,000 times better than the West. This is what, what he said. So now that deal, that brings us to the deals between Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia and China. China, if you push it and you insist that this is what we want to do, they will come in and do it. But the West wants to use blackmailing. If they see that you are going to benefit and, it is a 50-50, everyone is going to benefit, they will start blackmailing you. They want to overthrow the government. They will finance demonstrations in your country. So they will use all tactics to try to, to diminish you so that you will not benefit anything. So to briefly or finally answer your question, I think that the Chinese deals, even though I have not looked at them yet, which I need to do, those which were signed between Zambia and China and Democratic Republic of Congo and China, they are likely to be far better than what the West is giving, because the West, as you have seen the memo, the MOU, they are not committing to anything, but they are committing to building a railway line which will ship out Africa's resources and take them to Europe and the United States in raw materials. They have not committed to any building of processing plants.
Okay, good. Thank you for your clarification. Hello, Aaron. Wow, it has been a long time. Welcome. Makisimba said Magufuli did the same thing with renegotiating. Okay. Greece is part of the European Union and could use that as a leverage to renegotiate the port deal with China. The Chinese will build a factory to process lithium in Zimbabwe. Okay. So we are electing leaders who lack vision. I think it's time Africans take their destiny into their hands. Emma Vilakazi, okay. We hear you. Yeah, it's insane sometimes, really. Thinking, on what kind of documents they are signing, putting a generation into debt. Yeah, so I think, thank you. I don't see any other question except that what Ossie asked before, but Obiachman, it would be good though. Was it a question? Central Bank is privately owned by a Rothschild family. Do we use? Yeah, all right. No, I think it's not related to this. But thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. So happy to be back. It has been a while, few days. We have not done our daily streaming or our live streaming here. We will see you again. So until the next one, it's a bye-bye and have a good evening from here. But before that, please don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and then share it within your network, family,
Yes,
anyone.
and yes, and also I think I would like to request people to go out and support the Africa Continental Unity Party. Is one of the organizations which we are preparing to be able to advance Africa's interests. It's an organization that is being championed by, Africans, by young Africans, because we see that there has to be change on the continent, and that change has to be driven by Africans. So I ask you to go out there on your Google and search for Africa Continental Unity Party, or even on YouTube. You can check it and see what they are trying to do. It is one of the organizations which Connect Africa is working with and is collaborating with. And this is very, very important. So go out there and support the Africa Continental Unity Party in the same way you support Connect Africa. Thank you very much.
Do they have a link you want to share or anything? How can they find them?
Yeah, so I can get a link here and I'll put it.
Until then, is there anyone here from Haiti? Please drop an email as contact us. Yeah, if there's anyone from Haiti. I know there are some people from Caribbean. I would like to get in touch with you. Sinovia, oh, hello, Sinovia. Good to have you back. Aaron, did you ask Aaron a question? I haven't seen. Please repost it here. Then Kwame, I'm sure he will answer it to you.
Yeah, Mahlet, I sent you a message,
So
which
yeah,
has
Africa Reimagined. All of you can see. So there is a name, the correct name, African Continental Unity Party. Please check here is Africa, the chat from Africa Reimagined. So that is the organization that Kwame just asked you to support. It's an organization that works also with Connect Africa. Yeah, please go check them out and give them your support in whatever way, which is. So Aaron, if you can repost back your question, that I don't see it there. Yeah, so Aaron, if I don't see it, then specifically waiting for your question. Oh, have you tried to explore the reason why the West keep invading Haiti? No, I thought it's a topic related to today's one. But this, I think we have touched it in and not really as a topic for a discussion, but in different times. Kwame, you want to say something about that?
I think that we spoke.
Yeah,
we spoke about it. We did a program on it. We did a program on President Ruto. So I think that is the much I can say about it. And we spoke about Haiti, of course. So we did a program on President Ruto, and we spoke extensively about Haiti.
Yeah, so maybe I will I'll send you the link for that, the video link on that. I'm going to check it out. Yeah, so have a good evening, everyone. We will see you on the next one. Ciao, ciao. Bye. Thank you.